Hi everyone and welcome to Cyber-Intel.Tech. Today we are diving deep into Process Explorer in this first part of our hands-on threat hunting series, which will span 3 videos in total. In part 1 we will focus on fine-tuning Process Explorer to make it a powerful and reliable tool in our threat hunting arsenal. In part 2 we will explore additional Sysinternal tools, with them being Process Monitor, Autoruns and TCP View. And in part 3 we will put the full toolset to the test by simulating a real-world attack using Mitre Caldera as our command and control framework. Process Explorer is one of the most powerful tools in the Sysinternal suite, packed with detection features that every blue teamer, analyst or admin should know. When properly configured, it can help uncover even well-hidden threats such as those masquerading as legitimate processes under the System32 path, while in reality dropping binaries there to evade suspicion. Together we will configure the 9 most critical tabs and their indicators. We will go through every and each one of them to explain why we chose them and how they can help our investigative mission, delivering the best possible results for visibility and threat detection. Let's jump right in. First, we head over to the Sysinternals website to download it if we don't have it already. Be cautious of any rogue web pages on Google coming up as adverts, as they could mislead you to well-crafted pages mimicking the legitimate page you are looking for. The current version available as of July 2025 is 17.06. We can download it and run it locally or choose to run it live by clicking the link. Personally, I prefer to run it locally, but that's up to you, as the execution option doesn't really make any difference in the future set presented when using Process Explorer. Let's quickly extract it. Okay, so let's launch the tool as an administrator to ensure we get the full feature set and the detailed overview. After clicking agree on the license agreement that shows up, we will first want to go to the options menu and check both verify image signatures and the virustotal.com options. We need the first to verify the legitimacy of a running process, meaning if they are signed by their vendor as they should be, while we want the second, the virustotal option, as it is helpful for rapid triage. How this works: it integrates with the virustotal service to show scan results for the executable. How that happens is that it essentially submits the file hash to the service to get an immediate crowdsourced intelligence on known malicious files. This way, we can rapidly identify if a process executable is known to be malicious, so we want this too. It is important to remember that most of the time, a high virustotal score is a clear red flag that requires further investigation. On the other hand, a low score doesn't necessarily guarantee legitimacy, as you could always be dealing with a new or unknown malware. It is also essential to consider that submitting hashes to a third party such as VirusTotal should be avoided in sensitive environments that could contain, for example, regulated data. Again, in the options menu, we will want to make sure the color indicators of Process Explorer fit to our visual requirements. We need the visual cues to be meaningful for us, so we get provided with instant alerts to process state changes, such as green for new processes and red for the terminated ones. Therefore, we go to the Configure Colors option to have a look. I will leave them to their defaults, as I'm good with how they are. Next, we want to go to the View menu to make sure that the Show Lower Pane option is enabled. This will present us with a thorough view of handles, DLLs, and threads of any given process. We certainly want this. We can see that the Show Process Tree option is already enabled, as we have launched the program previously as administrators. This option allows to visually group processes with their parent process, helping for things to make more sense as we go. I find it to be useful during my investigations, and my guess is you will find it too. Next, it's time for us to proceed with the core setup of supercharging Process Explorer. To do this, we will go to the View option and click on Select Columns, which will present us with all the available tabs. This is what we will use for fine-tuning to achieve a configuration that matches our desired threat hunting analysis level. There are many columns there that we could use, And what we will do is go through them one by one to not only recommend the key features on each, but explain why we chose them and how this will help our threat hunting journey. Remember that you can always check or uncheck what you deem to be important for the scenario you are investigating or that simply suits your appetite. First up, the process image tab, which is absolutely crucial for initial triage. We utilize it to verify the legitimacy of a process and its executable path, to confirm if it is signed by a verified signer, and to check for tampering or unknown origins. It is also instrumental in identifying executables with suspicious names or those residing in unusual directories. Generally, this tab helps uncovering masquerading techniques, potential use of living off the land binaries, suspicious user context, and absurd parent-child process relationships. We begin with the process name option, which is pre-configured as the most basic identifier, providing the immediate name of the running program for quick identification of suspicious entries. Next is the process identifier option, which is also pre-configured due to its importance. The PID presents a unique identifier for each process. It is critical for log correlation with event and firewall logs, tracking process life cycles, and distinguishing between multiple instances of the same process name. We will then want to enable the username option, which shows which user account the process is running under. This is fundamental for spotting privilege escalation attempts, such as a process running with higher privileges than expected, tracking down impersonated or compromised accounts, for example, identifying processes running under service account, system, or other privileged accounts that they normally shouldn't, while it also helps determining the context in which a process belongs. We will also want to make sure that the description column is enabled, since it provides a human-readable description of the process, often derived from the executable's metadata. This is useful for quick identification and verifying the legitimacy of common system processes. Then we have the company name, which specifies the vendor of the executable. This helps us quickly verify if a process truly belongs to a given vendor and is essential for spoofing detection, as malware often attempts to imitate legitimate company names or simply lacks a company name entirely. Then we have one of the absolute musts, the verified signer option. This option indicates if the executable is digitally signed by a trusted certificate authority, and therefore if the signature is valid. This is absolutely critical for verifying authenticity and trust, as it helps differentiate between legitimate system binaries and unsigned, malicious, or those with invalid or revoked signatures. We should pay close attention to this indicator, not only during our setup, but most importantly, during our investigations. You will want to search there to find if there is anything wrong. Another absolute must is the image path option, which provides the full path to the executable on disk. This is vital for location verification, allowing us to see if a process runs from its expected path or a suspicious temporary directory. It also aids in persistence detection by identifying processes running from unusual locations. Next, we have the most indispensable option, which is the command line option, and you can surely understand why. Enabling this column allows us to see the full command used to launch the process, including all its arguments. This is extremely powerful for malware detection and behavioral analysis. This granular insight is a key point in digital forensics and incident response, as it can significantly aid in identifying the root cause of an incident. As our final two highly recommended options for this tab, we have the auto start location, which is super important as it indicates the specific registry key, service, or file path that registers the process or its associated modules for automatic execution. This is extremely valuable for DFIR in identifying persistence mechanisms. We also want to make sure that the virus total option is enabled for the reasons we have discussed previously. And we also have the integrity level option, which we will want to enable. This option reflects the trustworthiness of a process. A process running at an unexpected integrity level is a major red flag, so we will want to check this too. From here, you can proceed to enable additional columns such as data execution prevention status and address space layout or randomization enabled. All provide further insights into our running processes. Those are recommended, but they are not mandatory. The same applies to the remaining columns, which you may want to consider for a more in-depth analysis if necessary. Finishing with the selection for this tab, we now have all the necessary fields configured to help us correlate indicators of execution, privilege misuse, and evasion all in one view. Next, we move to the Process Network tab, which is also very crucial for threat hunting since malicious processes often communicate with command and control servers or exfiltrate data. Process Explorer provides valuable network insights primarily through the TCP/IP tab within a process properties and specialized columns in the main view. Monitoring network connections allows us to identify anomalous or unexpected communications across the network. This is very important for our investigations. We will see more on this later in this video. To begin, we enable the receives and sends columns in the main Process Explorer window. These provide a real-time count of network packets or connections, helping us to quickly notice unusual communication patterns indicative of malware, data exfiltration, or command and control activity. Concurrently, we enable the receive bytes and send bytes columns to quantify the volume of data transferred. This is particularly useful for identifying data exfiltration attempts where large amounts of data are being sent out of the system. Finally, we also enable the delta-related columns such as delta receives, delta sends, delta receive bytes, and delta send bytes. These delta metrics track ongoing network activity and changes, which is invaluable during live analysis and incident response. By observing these deltas, we can pinpoint the active malicious operations and understand the current rate of data transfer. For DFIR, these network-related columns are indispensable for rapidly identifying compromised machines, understanding the scope of a breach, and tracking active malware and command and control activities. Next, we move to the Process Memory tab. Memory insights are incredibly important for live incident response and initial triage as they provide the quickest and most direct insights into active threats, especially for those that are fileless or in-memory malware. This is where many advanced threats hide to evade disk-based detection. Making proper configuration and understanding memory-related columns and the strings tab in Process Explorer is crucial for catching them. We will discuss the strings tab in detail later down the track. We begin by making sure that the private bytes column is enabled. This metric represents the amount of memory a process has allocated that cannot be shared with other processes. Malware often unpacks itself directly into memory or injects code, leading to a noticeable and suspicious jump in private bytes. Therefore, a sudden significant increase in private bytes can strongly indicate malicious activity. We also enable peak private bytes. This is to observe the maximum private memory a process has consumed since its inception. This provides valuable historical context, allowing us to identify past memory-intensive operations, even if the current usage is low, which can be crucial for understanding transient malware behavior. We also want to make sure that the working set size column is also enabled, since this reflects the physical memory currently being used by the process. Monitoring this setting can help detect resource hogging or sudden memory spikes, both of which are important for spotting suspicious activity. We also enable the peak working set size option as it shows the highest amount of physical memory a process has occupied since it has started. Next, we enable page faults and page fault delta. A page fault occurs when a program attempts to access a page of memory that is not currently present in its physical memory working set, therefore requiring it to be loaded from disk or elsewhere. A high page fault delta can indicate intense or unusual memory access patterns, particularly if a process is constantly loading new code or data pages. While often benign in legitimate applications, unusual spikes can sometimes relate to code injection, frequent code changes, or even resource exhaustion attempts. Additionally, enabling private bytes history is highly recommended for deeper analysis. This option provides a visual graph of private bytes over time within the process properties, revealing trends, sudden spikes, or abnormal patterns that might not be obvious from a single numerical value. This visual history is excellent for understanding the life cycle of a process memory usage and identifying transient malicious activity. As our final, highly recommended memory-related option, we enable virtual size. This represents the total size of the process virtual address space, including both committed and reserved memory. Large or rapidly expanding virtual size can be a good indicator of malicious activity involving extensive memory allocations or reservations, which might be missed by focusing only on physical memory. From here, you can proceed to enable other additional options that could further help your investigation from a memory forensics standpoint. Next, we move on to configuring the process disk columns. These columns are an absolute must for ransomware detection and any activity involving file system tampering. We begin by enabling the reads and write columns. These track the number of file read and write operations, allowing us to spot unexpected writes, especially to critical system directories. Those could be strong indicators of malicious activity, such as ransomware or persistence mechanisms. Then we move on to enabling the read bytes and write byte options. This is to quantify the actual data volume transferred. Watching for large write and read bytes can be alarming indicators of extensive file manipulation activities. This could be mass encryption, data staging for exfiltration, or bulk file access. Finally, we enable the delta writes option. This option displays active file IOPS in real time. This dynamic view is perfect for spotting droppers, active encryptors during a ransomware attack, or the immediate effects of persistence mechanisms being established. Enabling the delta reads option is equally valuable as it can aid in detection, particularly during the initial phases of an attack when adversaries are performing discovery or collection. With these columns configured, we gain critical real-time visibility into a process interaction with the file system. Next, we move to configure columns from the process performance category. These columns are essential for spotting potential malicious activity that causes intense system resource utilization, which of course is often a prime indicator of suspicious operations. First, we will want to make sure that the CPU usage option is enabled. This helps to identify processes consuming disproportionate CPU cycles, which is a potential sign of malware performing crypto mining, executing resource-intensive payloads, or engaging in continuous malicious loops. High CPU usage is frequently one of the first visual cues that something is amiss with the system. Another quick way to spot processes behaving abnormally at a lower level than just overall CPU is by enabling the threads column. An unusual or excessively high number of threads for a process can indicate problems like persistence injection or complex multi-threaded malware. Besides this, we will also want to enable the start time, handle count, and 3 CPU usage columns. Start time is fundamental for building a timeline during an incident. Knowing exactly when a process started is critical for understanding the sequence of events, identifying initial compromise vectors, and tracking malware propagation. We want the handle count option on to help detect a sudden surge or unusually high number of open handles for a process. This can be indicative of resource exhaustion attacks, extensive file system or registry enumeration, or attempts to manipulate numerous system objects. We want the 3 CPU usage option since it shows the combined CPU usage of a process and all its child processes. This is invaluable for DFIR as it helps to pinpoint malicious operations hidden within a large process tree, therefore allowing you to identify the true source of resource consumption. With these columns configured, we gain crucial visibility into the resource footprint and life cycle of processes. This is vital in enhancing our ability to detect active threats and maintain a secure environment. Next is the process I/O category. This category, along with process disk metrics, provides a holistic view of a process interaction with various I/O resources, crucial for detecting suspicious behavior beyond just traditional disk or network traffic. We enable reads, writes, delta reads, and delta writes, as they all help indicating active communication, data access, or resource manipulation by malware or an attacker. We especially want to enable the delta categories to catch the current ongoing activity for all types of I/O, providing real-time insight into malicious operations. We also enable read bytes and write bytes, and this is to catch large or unusual byte counts which could indicate an alarming data transfer activity such as data exfiltration. Next, we move to the process GPU category. This category could become particularly useful when dealing with crypto miners or certain types of malware that leverage our graphical processing units. An unexpected high GPU usage from a background process or a seemingly benign application can help spotting and uncovering malicious activity. For DFIR purposes, enabling just the GPU usage option will suffice most of the time. If you are concerned about cryptojacking or other GPU abusing malware, enabling GPU usage is a good idea. It provides a direct, high-level indicator that can quickly point you to a problem. We know that malware or miners leverage GPU for offloading. Not much more to see here, we now move on to the handle columns. And next on the line is the handle tab. This is where Process Explorer truly becomes a forensic tool. The handle view is incredibly important for investigating inter-process communication, persistence mechanisms, code injection, and unauthorized resource access. By examining open handles, you gain direct insight into precisely which files, registry keys, and other system objects a process is interacting with. Therefore, I strongly recommend enabling 6 out of 8 available columns in total. Type for understanding what kind of object a process is interacting with, name to identify the specific resources that a process may be maliciously interacting with. We then have access mask and decoded access mask, which are absolutely critical and literally not to be missed in any of our investigative missions. What they do is that they reveal the specific permissions a process has over the accessed object, and analyzing this can expose attempts to tamper with other processes, modify critical files or registry keys, or perform actions beyond the process' legitimate scope. For example, in case we see an unexpected process _all _access flag over another critical process or write access to protected files or keys, this is a major red flag. Next, we have the handle value, which provides the unique identifier for the handle. This is useful for advanced correlation or when working with other tools. Then there is the file share flags column, which we want to enable since it indicates how a file is being shared. Unusual sharing can be relevant to data exfiltration or resource contention. Finally, we enable the attributes option. This option provides additional characteristics of the handle, offering further context which at times could be helpful in our investigations. By thoroughly and extensively analyzing these handle details, we, as DFIR analysts, can uncover covert file dropping, backdoor channels, attempts to disable security products, and generally unauthorized data access. And, believe it or not, we made it to the last category, the DLL tab. This view is incredibly valuable for us as DFIR analysts and can often be a goldmine in an investigation. It reveals all dynamic link libraries loaded for a given process, which is crucial for detecting code injection, persistence mechanisms, or malicious DLL side loading, and, well, a bunch of other important things. This menu looks similar to the process image 1, presenting many common options. I recommend enabling most of them for a thorough analysis. We will want to make sure that the description column is enabled. This is to get a human readable description of the DLL. We will also want to make sure that the name option is enabled as well. This is to quickly recognize known good or bad DLLs or spot malicious names. We absolutely want to make sure that the path option is enabled. This is critical since it provides the full path of the loaded DLL on the disk, allowing us to identify DLLs loaded from suspicious or unusual locations. We then have the company name and the verified signer options. We want them both for verifying the DLL's legitimacy and authenticity, aiding mostly in masquerading detection. We then want to make sure that the auto start location column is enabled to pinpoint the specific registry key or file path responsible for loading the DLL. Of course, we also want to make sure that we have the virus total option enabled for rapid crowdsourced intelligence on known malicious DLLs on this category, and to make sure both those two options are enabled. This is to gain more information on the DLL's architecture regarding the first, and to be able to assess its resilience against memory exploits. This is for the second. With these columns configured, we have completed the setup for the 9 primary views and their essential columns. For those wondering why we haven't enabled any columns on the .NET Assemblies tab, it's because for the vast majority of DFIR investigations, the information provided by the tabs configured so far is far more broadly applicable and actionable. Enabling .NET specific columns would primarily add clutter without providing frequently useful security insights. This is unless you are specifically investigating suspected .NET based malware. In that occasion, you will want to enable certain columns as well. In general DFIR scenarios, it is recommended to leave it untouched to avoid further noise. Before we close this configuration window, there is one final category of columns we can configure, the status bar option. These columns provide a thorough overview of the system's health in the shape of system-wide statistics. For DFIR, enabling CPU usage, commit charge, number of processes, and physical memory usage is highly advisable. These metrics offer quick, high-level indicators of system instability, resource exhaustion, or unusually high activity that could be symptomatic of a widespread compromise or a resource-intensive threat. And we are done with the Select Columns window. This is how Process Explorer should look after having completed our setup. We couldn't end this first part of our threat hunting series by not discussing the process properties dialog. Double-clicking to a given process provides us with options that are cornerstone in deeply investigate suspicious process identified in the main view. The process properties dialog box provides granular insights across multiple tabs, which we certainly want to investigate. We have the image tab, which is amazingly useful, providing a wealth of crucial information in an aggregated view. As you can see, this helps to quickly get more information on a process legitimacy. We get the full running path, the command line arguments, the current directory, and the auto start location as well. We can also see the process's parent process, the user which is used to run it, while we can also see its start time and also get a quick glance of the virus total status together with a number of other indicators. Therefore, this one is super important for our investigations and specifically for rapid triage. Then we have the performance tab where we get more information on CPU, memory, and I/O. This is again to spot spikes or unusual patterns. And also we have the performance graph tab. This is to visualize these trends over time. Next, we have the disk and network tab. This provides a quick glance on corresponding I/O a current process has at this very moment. The GPU graph shows, well, you guessed it, visualized metrics for the current usage GPU for a given process. Again, if your computer appears to be sluggish, you will want to certainly look out for this one. And then we have the threat tab, which is absolutely crucial, providing a granular view into the internal workings of a process. Again, this is essential for detecting subtle indicators of compromise such as code injection, hollowing, or module tampering. As DFIR analysts, we will particularly want to pay close attention to the threat start addresses. So, if a threat starts at an address outside any loaded legitimate module, this may strongly indicate malicious activity. The rest of this view complements our analysis, but the threat start addresses is the one we should focus mostly to. Next, we have the TCP/IP tab, which, as you can imagine, is essential for network and for identifying command and control activities. Again, this lists all connections, so we will want to look for suspicious remote addresses and ports here. In this particular instance for this process, we don't have any TCP/IP connections presently. Next is the security tab. This is where we inspect user privileges and access tokens. We will want to research for any signs of privilege escalation or access token manipulation using this tab. Then we have the environment tab to review environment variables for unusual entries or modifications. And then we have the highly critical strings tab. The strings tab could be a powerful forensic artifact in our investigations. It displays printable characters from the process image or memory, giving a raw glimpse into embedded commands, artifact residues, compiler signatures, injected payloads, and suspicious indicators like encoded payloads or URLs. Discrepancies between memory and image strings could suggest unpacking. Finally, we could at times get presented with an extra tab for some processes, like this process, which is the job tab. Most of the time we are going to see the job tab when opening process properties dialog of a browser process or protection tools such as sandboxing tools. What this does is that it allows us to see a list of processes running in the same job as the selected process and to see the job limits that have been applied to the job. And we made it to the end. With our Process Explorer environment now fully tuned, we are ready to proceed with empowering the rest of our toolset. We will want to have everything ready before we unleash our emulation test in the third and final segment of this series. I would love to hear your stories if you have encountered an incident with Process Explorer or any other Sysinternal tool. So, if yes, please drop a comment below. Until next time, take care.